podcast to honor the gods.
This better come with a sacrifice.
Deus Ex Media.
Content Capable acknowledges the Indigenous people on the land on which we record this podcast, the Turungurung people. We offer our respect to their elders, past, present, and emerging, and extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Sovereignty was never ceded. Welcome to Content Capable. My name's Sam. I'm your host. I am really excited to be chatting here with Leo Puglisi of Six News fame. Hi, Leo. Welcome to Content Capable.
Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm so very excited. As I keep telling every person I meet, you're one of my favorite journalists, and I want to be like you when I grow up, which is funny because you are very much younger than I am.
A few people have said that, and I'm like, I'm having to wait a few years till I grow up to be like you anyway. So, but still, I mean, I don't know, it keeps the gig going with being younger and all that, and you'll be able to make the I'm not voting for anyone jokes on Twitter. I mean, 2025 I turn 18, but election will be in May or earlier, so I can keep the joke running for a while there, which I'm really happy with. But yeah.
Look, we always love riling up people who just have no idea what they're talking about. It gives me great joy to see the replies on some of your tweets, because it is just absolutely chaotic sometimes. People just have no idea who they're speaking to.
I legit 2 minutes before I got on air, and this is not a joke, and anyone who's now listening can go and check the record. I had someone arguing with someone else, and then I jumped in that Albanese had never been on Sky News, and it was just this constant beratement. And I'm showing them screenshots of him on Sky News, and they're photoshopped. I've showed the YouTube link, and then just some ramble. I showed the transcript from the Prime Minister's office that says on Sky News. I show his tweets where he says about to join Sky News. See, it's just like that, but it gets worse. It's always the age-based stuff. Last night, someone was saying, it was my mum running the account, they're going to put in a freedom of information request to find out who I am. With who?
Okay.
With who? Who are they going to put in with my dad? They're just going to email him and like, oh, is this your son? Are you controlling the account? It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Look, it's very fascinating. For those who don't know what Six News is, could you give a bit of a rundown of what the channel is and what you guys do?
Yeah, so we're a independent, unbiased digital news outlet run entirely by young journalists, some aged a bit younger than myself, some in their early 20s. Got a team of more than a dozen people now, covering national news, international news, with a bit of a niche on some political stuff as well. Started off as kind of being just a weekly bulletin. We're a lot more than that now. We are effectively like a 24/7 channel that is, at this stage, not yet broadcasting 24/7, but we're really not a week in review thing. It's really up to live stuff, breaking news. That's where we really focus on now. And again, some of the political niche content that mainly is on me and a few other people. But yeah, it's growing, and this is our 4th year too.
So 4 years ago, why did you start? Like obviously, you've got a passion for news. Like, if that's not evident, I don't know what is. But, why did you start deciding that you wanted to broadcast news online?
Yeah, well, I mean, it was more of a passion thing in 2019. I mean, it was last year primary school. I'm in year 6. Nothing better to do. I'd liked having a passion for it. I mean, that goes back to things like liking things like English, watching the news from a young age. I mean, there's video of me watching the ABC in a high chair. Yeah, it was nothing serious, but it became a bit more serious when 2020 rolled around. People were actually looking for more news, be that bushfires, where a family holiday had gone awry, and suddenly I was in a bushfire zone, which was not exactly well planned, but there's like Albury and Canberra, etc. We were driving up there, and then of course COVID, so we just continued from there. Eventually, a few other media places, interviewed me, and then took off from there, especially online, and especially, maybe unfortunately, on Twitter, which has proved to be a blessing and a horrible curse, but it's incredible. I'm can't believe it's grown like that. And without COVID, we wouldn't be where we are now. I can say that. So if that's one benefit of COVID, one of not many, but that might be it for me.
I think it's one of those fascinating things where you just don't think about the situations that you land yourself in as well. Like, you're from Victoria, one of the most heavily locked down areas in the world, and having being there and witnessing it firsthand just gives that extra little bit of perspective that not everyone could quite capture in the news cycle. Same with bushfires, and same with a whole variety of other things.
I was going through remote learning too, might I add, which is of course something others couldn't relate to it in terms of actually experiencing that. I'm sure parents had experiences. Many journalists are parents themselves, mothers, fathers. But as a student, being able to report on it was an incredible perspective. And might I add, that lockdowns just in itself may have also advanced 6 News, because I was able to be at a computer all the time. I mean, I was at a computer when Gladys Berejiklian resigned, and it was like a Friday afternoon, and she suddenly resigned, and I'm balancing a Zoom call with a lockdown, a resignation press conference, I should say.
No, it's kind of terrifying on one hand that obviously the news cycle kind of necessitates that everyone be almost chronically online, but also at the same time that being able to be behind a computer, and I've only fairly recently graduated from high school myself, and sitting there and have that computer in front of you and have that excuse to kind of run a Zoom call and on the side be watching the premier of a state resign, or a lockdown be introduced, or restrictions be advanced, or a variety of other things. We had a federal election up between COVID and now. There's so much that happens, especially within school hours. I work in a 9 to 5 newsroom, and we, between 3 and 5 p.m, we're kind of just sitting there writing the rest of our stories as we prepare I work in a newspaper, working on that newspaper and preparing those stories. You don't necessarily chase stories outside of that kind of school hours where everyone's kind of fully working and engaged.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? And but the 24-hour cycle is important for us to cover. There's been plenty of big stories that have been covered at ridiculous hours when most Australian media was not up. The Queen dying, that was something we were reporting on at the moment. We've got the tweet 3:31 a.m. Eastern Daylight, which was we were all expecting it after the first kind of announcement of what was 8:30, 9:30 that she was ill, and of course even in the UK the resignation of Boris Johnson, and then the resignation of Liz Truss, which we were also up covering at ridiculous hours. And it's crazy to cover sometimes, and maybe it's contributed to my terrible sleep schedule, but it is necessary, and it's what our viewers and our followers do like. They do like the live breaking news 24/7. I think the big criticisms of existing news channels is either they're too biased or they're too boring. They're not up to date.
Yeah, that too. And I think that this is one of the comments I've seen since I've studied a journalism degree, and I've finished that degree, and I've started working in a quote unquote proper newsroom, and it's very fascinating to sit in that newsroom and be a young person with the kind of energy and the ideas that I have, and watch people go, why didn't I never thought of it that way, or I never thought to take it this angle, or having the and I suppose it's a crude word, but the naivety to go, I'm going to pursue this story even though it doesn't seem like a good story initially, and having good results from it. I think it's one of those things that a lot of older journalists don't. They kind of pick and choose what they feel like is right. I kind of stumbled the other week onto a story about water fluoridation, and obviously as soon as they say water fluoridation, you kind of get a whole stream of comments about the fact that, it's a bad thing or whatever, it's a good thing. But the town I live in now in northeast Victoria, in Mansfield, has a very long history with water fluoridation and dental hygiene. And I didn't realize, I really kind of just popped onto it because we saw this story about how people from Dubbo didn't realize they weren't drinking fluoridated water. And I was like, oh, well, what happens here, you know? And it's not something that anyone else in the newsroom really kind of pursued. And it was weird because I got a lot of not pushback, a lot of engagement from it, you know. I stumbled on to the CEO of the Victorian Dental Association, and you know, his dad was the principal of a local primary school, and you know, all of this crazy stuff that you just don't get when you don't pursue a story all the way. It's kind of amazing. Look, this has probably been asked to death of you, but how do you balance like school, which is, you know, typically 9 to 3, let's be honest, it's not anymore, and then, you know, writing news and keeping on top of the news cycle?
Yeah, well, I think I've given the same answer about every time. I don't know, and I barely do. It can be hard to manage. I'm glad that we do have a big team, and it should be emphasised. This is not Leonardo Puglisi's Six News. This is Six News. It is a team, and it is a whole team who are doing things on air or behind the scenes 24/7. But I don't know. At times it can be hard. But thank God for scheduled social media posts and all that. You know, it makes it easy. Yeah, and always having to say, in terms of an interview, I've got to be after 4:30 p.m. Can't do it any sooner. It used to be after 4, but then senior school we finish a bit later, and I don't trust the trams to get me home in half an hour, even though I'm really a 15-20 minute walk away. So I you know, it can be hard. I still don't get it, but it has worked out so far. I mean, then again, this is the first year where I've got VCE, so we shall see. But well, it's fine for now.
Look, I could never think of repeating my high school years because the amount of things that I was doing, and I was like you, I actually am not quite sure how I did high school because I was doing so much. At one point, I was very musical, and I was playing a lot of music, and I think I was in 7 different ensembles, both community and, you know, within, and it's kind of crazy. You look at it, back at it, and I'm sure that, you know, there's been periods of time where you look back and you go, how the hell was I up till, you know, 3:30, 4 a.m. and then, you know, rocked up to school the next day and, you know, finished my Friday while the Queen's dead and everyone's, only you know, in mourning.
Only, what was I going to say? Only 3:30. I mean, I'm usually pulling all-nighters at this point. Queen dying actually came at a convenient time for me because we had a day off school on the Friday, which she technically died early Friday morning. But I wasn't actually planning on going to school that day, and I'd already said to my parents 3 years in advance, okay, this is one of the reasons why I'm allowed to miss school a day. If the Queen dies, if a Prime Minister resigns, or something like that. And just so happens that the day I don't have school, the Friday, the Queen dies. Wasn't that an interesting period? And you know, like all newsrooms, we had an obituary ready. We had been planning on it for a while. Happening at 3:30 was not ideal, but again, we were able to cover it, and it was a incredible thing to listen to because we were covering it on social media, but then I also had ABC radio in the background and the interruptions, and then this is the BBC, etc., etc., etc. And wow, the BBC's coverage was incredible, and we all know they've been planning it since she became Queen. Let's be honest.
Yeah. It's very fascinating. Like the Queen's death. I'm not a monarchist in any stretch of the imagination, but I don't think the monarchy should necessarily be completely abolished. I think there's a happy middle ground somewhere. But I will say it was very fascinating. Of all things, the night the Queen died, I was at Pancake Manor in Brisbane CBD. I don't know what had just happened. I think we just had a gig, and we'd all went to It's a 24-hour pancake place that sells all sorts of things. We'd harass these poor wait staff by having 30 of us rock up. And we'd all gone to dinner, and I'd spent the whole of dinner on my phone, basically on Twitter, seeing what was happening, and keeping an eye on things and on the latest updates. And I think by about 11 o'clock, I kind of knew that she was probably going to die overnight. And I very much considered, because I was running a short form newsroom at the time, going into the newsroom and keeping on top of things overnight. I was like, maybe this is not the greatest thing for my mental health. I did rock up like half an hour early because when I got there in the morning, but we as a newsroom didn't have any of that stuff prepared either. The radio station I worked at the time was deeply anti-monarch, and nothing bad about that. It was just that was the position of the station. So we ran one story, and that was it. It was like a 2-minute story about the Queen had died, and there were other stories around the fact that Queensland Parliament had been delayed, and everyone was trying to, I think, return.
Oh, yeah, I think everything was affected by the death. I mean, the Parliament, and here in Victoria, I think it might have been unique to us that every single member had to be re-sworn in.
That's right. That's what was happening. We looked at that and we're like, well, this is a
which
bit of
was
a
not
fuck
exactly
around.
convenient. Might I add, a lot of those members who were re-sworn in, a few weeks later lost their seats anyway, or didn't run again. So it was a weird time for everyone, and then again, like all other news outlets, we've got other obituaries standing by. I think right now, and I don't know when your listeners are listening to this, but right now, of course, Jimmy Carter is now receiving hospice care, the former US president. So there's that, and so it's going to be really interesting to see how that all plays out, but it's important because you have to kind of be prepared for these kind of stories.
Yeah, and so I suppose we should probably move on from such lovely topics as these kind of crazy news events. Your parents have quite clearly been very supportive of the work you've done. What was kind of the initial reaction of some of your peers at school and your teachers and other adults in your life?
Nothing really more than cool. It's not. If you didn't recognise me, I wouldn't exactly stand out at school anyway. So from 6 News, that is recognised from 6 News. But it's nothing special. I mean, teachers have been supportive. I mean, if there's a note that says I cannot be at school due to insert press conference here, they'll believe it. It's not like a dog ate your homework situation. They can believe this. Maybe too believable. Maybe I'll exploit it eventually. No, any teachers listening to this, I'm not going to do that yet. But yeah, it's really just been all supportive. But at the same time, and it should be made clear to people who, for whatever reason, after all these years, still don't believe it. But my parents don't have involvement in the editorial line of 6 News, the production of 6 News. The most they do is my dad turns on the camera to film sometimes, or drives me somewhere. Like, come on. With the greatest respect to my parents, they don't know how to use a Word doc. So, they're not managing this news outlet, and they never will. They've also had to be supportive. Mine are on the internet, so mine are with a large profile on the internet, the Wikipedia page, mind you. So it's not like they're not aware of it. More so my dad. Maybe my mum does. Well, my mum has his Facebook. My dad, at the very least, has Twitter, so he sees some of the weird meltdowns people have at me. But yeah.
Look, I think being a public figure in general, someone's inevitably it's almost like a once a week occurrence having someone melt down at you. Look, I've never had to deal with it other than through a business or organisation I've represented online. So whether that's 4ZZZ News as a journalist and editor, or I've worked for publishing companies, I've worked for other organisations in social media. It's always very fascinating though. Someone always takes issue, no matter what line of work you work in. Someone's always taking issue with your work.
And we've been called political shills for about every party in existence. I mean, anti-Labour, anti-Liberal, anti-Greens, pro-Greens, pro-Labour, pro-Liberal, anti-UAP, pro-UAP, etc., etc., etc. And it's all because we don't take a stance on something, we accurately report on something, we fact-check someone, or we speak to someone who, you don't want to hear from. And look, I appreciate that, there are some voices who are arguably more important than others in terms of just politics, for one example. But, we don't have the resources of the ABC or News Corp. We will take the interviews that we can get. We do reach out. It's very well known, and I've made it clear, during elections at least, Labour's media is very hard to get anyone on. You can't just go and ask for an interview. We could not ask Albanese's... We did ask Albanese's media team for an interview. They said, sure, but we got to check with someone first. Not even the then leader of the opposition was able to give approval in the first place. We got him, of course. It's a lot easier to deal with just as his government team. But the New South Wales election too, going through checks and balances. It's really hard to deal with. We do our best, and we try to speak to as many people as possible. But again, it's whoever gets us on. And people say we interview. Some people say we interview lots of Greens, and I'm just saying this on the media level. No one misquote me on this. They are very easy to get on. They have their media contacts very publicly available. They, message you on social media. It's really easy. So we will get them on because we know that. We're able to say, okay, well, this person, they're reliable. We know that we can pretty easily speak to them over something, whereas it might take 2 business days to get even a generic response from the coalition. And most of the time, we're interviewing the coalition like the MP's personal address with the subject of attention media / diary team or something like that. Yeah. We do try, but we do try to just get what we can get. That's why actually my pinned tweet is, any media people, please let us on your media list. We're begging you. This is an open invitation.
It's ridiculous. I've actively had this problem. So, for a little bit more context, I ran the short form news department of 4ZZZ. 4ZZZ is very, very clearly left-aligning. Now, our newsroom aims to be impartial, but in the way of we pick the stories that we feel aligns most with our listeners. So that is going to be more Greens aligning things, just by nature of the stories we choose. But through the election, we were very aware of the fact that we have many members of the Greens were either actively subscribing to 4ZZZ or B, worked for 4ZZZ in some way, shape or form. So we were very aware of that, and we were very, very conscious in the fact that we were going to reach out to, within reasonability, there was a discussion. We actually refused to speak to One Nation and the UAP and some of those anti-vax specifically parties as well, or groups of people
IMOP,
because of...
Informed Medical Options, those guys?
Yeah, we refused to speak to them on a basis of it was actually a personal decision by the head of news because of some incidents that had happened between media personnel from us and some anti-vax protesters outside Queensland State Parliament, which was a whole thing that had happened, and we were really it's not something I like to go into detail with because it was actually incredibly personal, someone I knew very well. And it was kind of terrifying to sit here and I was basically the producer ringing the ALP, the LNP. We knew Albanese was going to come into town, into Brisbane, and as the longest running and oldest community radio station in the country, we're like, we'd love to speak to Albanese. And I just sat there on the phone ringing. I think I had to ring 4 or 5 different phone numbers before I got a hold of someone, because no one was either A, picking up their phone, or B, the phone line wasn't connected, or it was the wrong person. And
we actually we had bloody producers at media outlets that were just interviewing us because we had just come off our ScoMo interview. People were saying, "Would you like us to help you?" Okay, but at the same time, they were struggling as well. I understand that they've got their own campaign rules, and I think these might have been introduced at that 2022 election, and they're evidently happening at a state level too in Victoria, New South Wales. But it's really hard. And we're trying. That's why a lot of our ALP interviews actually are done like months before the official quote-unquote election period begins. As I said, respect their rules, and as I said, we've managed to get these interviews. But it can be really hard, and especially for us when we were a lot newer. Like, we have to, first and foremost, we actually have to be taken seriously as a news outlet.
Yeah.
We actually, the sub, in the bottom of our signature on all the emails, actually have a little disclaimer, 6 News, blah, 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 interviewed, and we just name like ScoMo Albo, and I think Kevin Ruddle, Bob Catter. We just have to, actually prove it there. And it's unfortunate because we want to be more than that. We do want to be taken seriously, and a lot of people do, including Morrison and Albanese. But just getting a media advisor to actually notice us, because it's fair enough that an office staff sees a media request and it's the one that goes to the non-media email and they just discard it because maybe it's some crazy conspiracy website or just a scam or something like that. But more and more we're getting recognised by name, and I think that's really good.
Yeah. I think it's really weird that, like, people refuse to fact check or, like, verify. Even the newspaper I work with. The newspaper I work with now has existed for over 100 years. It's called the Mansfield Courier. It's independently owned and operated. It's not attached to News Corp or Fairfax in any way, shape, or form. And even then, some people, like... It's weird, but like there is a feeling that you aren't taken seriously, especially by like Victorian state government, agencies and bits and pieces. It's not an easy thing to feel, but like even in Brisbane, our newsroom isn't considered very highly. It hasn't existed for a huge amount of time. It's existed for about 45 years, but on top of that all, it's like, oh, aren't you the crazy lefties who love the Greens? It's like, yeah, we might have a lot of people from the Greens, or the Greens people who are, as you said, incredibly easy to work with. Of all things, I think at one point a Greens member texted me, not a member, one of their media stuff texted me at 9 o'clock or rang me at 9 o'clock at night, and I'm like making dinner, getting ready to go to bed, and I'm like, oh, this is nice. I actually got a phone call from someone today.
The first leader of any party that 6 News ever spoke to was Adam Bands, and this was actually about a year ago. And we're actually speaking to him very soon as well. Again, but it's really easy to do, and so we'll do that. But in terms of being taken seriously, I mean, we don't even have like press conference visibility. Total of maybe I want to say 3 press conferences 6 News has ever appeared at. And every time we're sticking our mic up as far as possible to try to get in every shot as a hope that people will notice us and link. And but yeah, that's why it's it can be hard. But again, the fact that we're able to get Morrison and Albanese is really helpful because that immediately puts you in the notice of you've interviewed someone important within our party with the Liberal and Labor camps. In terms of other side, minor parties seem to be more easy to get on, though maybe some of the more conspiratorial ones, as there many are, they'll distrust you, which is where you kind of have to say, we're independent, we're not mainstream, we kind of have to be very specific here. And by the way, might I add, that is very true. We are independent, we are not mainstream. But, you can't just say from any news outlet. And look, we treat all our interviewees the same most of the time, with respect. We interviewed a candidate from every single party bar 2 at the Victorian state election. One, because they never responded to us. The other one, because they pulled out last minute after never responding to us until, get this, the night before election eve. But yeah, it's unfortunate sometimes, but, as we grow, we're able to be taken more seriously, and that's a really good thing, because it means more opportunities for us and more opportunities for our viewers to be informed with these interviews, and that's what a lot of people do want to see from us. They do like the interviews. Yeah,
this is the thing as well. I think and this is where I get very frustrated at politicians' media teams. The more interviews you give, the more of a personality you also give by extension. Having conducted various interviews and repeat interviews as well, the longer the conversation, the more varied the conversation, the more of a personality that politician can show. And that's what people are looking for in an election. As someone who's voted in a few elections so far, as much as policy is really important to me, it's also personality and like, can I see you taking on the role as the member of parliament for my area or an area?
Yeah, like Morrison for us. I mean, in fairness, it was a parliament sitting day, so it was kind of in a rush. But you know, we had a short chat off air, me and my colleague, and then with Albo. Was a bit longer because he was actually in COVID ISO at the time. Almost like that's actually when we got him, but he couldn't escape. He couldn't avoid the interview. Now he's got nowhere to go, and we're able to. He was actually, by the way, funny story. He was 10 minutes late because apparently he didn't have the link or something. He joined from an iPad. But we got him, and we're actually able to have a longer chat off air. And he's a Hawthorn supporter. I'm a Hawthorn supporter, so we've already got that connection. And yeah, I mean that's nice to have. And but you know, I appreciate the personality. That being said, you can be the nicest person off air, and we will still grill you on air, as we did with Albanese, as we did with Scott Morrison. But nevertheless, and that's the other thing about Scott Morrison, because I don't know if Albo was just more prepared, or maybe it's just Albo being Albo. But obviously Morrison was a bit defensive with some of the questions, very evident. At the same time, it should be emphasised, and I've emphasised this ever since the interview happened. He was very respectful just before and just after the interview, and he never attacked us because of our age, which he could have very easily done. I think it was just more of a ScoMo being ScoMo thing with some of the questions, and I honestly think, given the exact same worded questions by any other journalist, he would have responded the same way. You know? So I'll make that case. That's me defending ScoMo in terms of ScoMo's interview with us, where everyone said, boo ScoMo, yeah. And I'm like, just hold on here for a second. Still very happy with that interview, and credit to our political editor, Roman McKinnon, because he had only just joined us, and somehow he managed to arrange that, which is incredible. I'm still shocked it happened. I am still completely shocked it happened. And might I add, also just quickly, because I'm ranting, but considering the fact that this was like the pre-ScoMo interview era of 6 News. Yeah. So where were they getting the basis of? Albo's team wasn't like, oh yeah, we've already interviewed Morrison, we'd like to interview Albo. Morrison, we had just interviewed Bant earlier that year. Like, I'm so glad
they've got no basis to get on. And look, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if someone in ScoMo's team's like, well, maybe because they're unproven, it's like, maybe this is a chance to kind of recover. I don't know. It's very interesting being on both sides. I've done PR and I've done journalism, and sitting on both sides of the coin. PR professionals, sometimes their line of logic is completely removed to the line of logic that journalists have, and sometimes it works really badly. Like PR professionals going, "Nah, we won't speak to you because you don't have a proven perspective." But on the other side, I've seen PR professionals turn around and go, "Oh yeah, we're definitely going to do that because you're unproven, and we can kind of not push our views onto you, but we've got a chance to start with a fresh slate. We don't have a history with this media organization, or this media organization has a completely different viewpoint." And look, in adding kudos to Morrison, I think it was a really good opportunity to engage with a younger audience, which is something that the Liberal government and the coalition in general really struggled with. It was engaging young people, and it was a great opportunity to do that with a younger team behind the wheel and a younger viewer demographic just being on social media as well. Yeah.
Again, we'll always be shocked it happened, but I'll never complain that it did.
Look, never, ever. And, producing news probably can't be the only thing that you get up to. Do you have a chance? I know that on Twitter I've been seeing the lovely trials and tribulations of your inter-school cricket team, but is there other things that you get involved with outside of, obviously producing and working on 6 News and school?
Oh yeah, well I casually play the cello. My dad works in instruments, so no shocker. Watch the footy, go to the footy, do inter-school footy when that's on. I'm sure I'll be tweeting about that ridiculously when that happens. hopefully we'll get more than 2 games then. Don't get me started. I'm about to go into a 20-minute rant. But yeah, I mean, it can be all consuming, but also your general just talking and going out with mates after school and things like that. Mainly like right after school. No one's organising things at 7 p.m. But usually that's because VCE study. I think I've got a maths test on tomorrow, so that's fun. But I think it's very well known. Journalists are not good at maths. That's been stated for years, and very true with this new generation of journalists. And I will make sure to keep that saying alive, and I am right now. But yeah,
look, we got back the NAPLAN result media release, I think today or sometime this week. And the poor journalist that was assigned to it, I've got a maths and science background. One of our other journalists, I think, is pretty handy with maths. The poor journalist that assigned it does not have a maths and science background. And so we, instead of reporting directly on the statistics, because it's such a small town and we also the news, we rely on advertising dollars directly from the schools in the area. We all turned around and were like, okay, well, the better way to do this is to pull quotes and go, hey, do you want to provide comment on your NAPLAN results? We're writing a story, but instead of listing scores, we'll chat about that. Especially because Steiner schools and none of the schools are the exact same. You've got your state high school, your state primary school, and then your Catholic primary school and your Steiner school. So none of them are comparable really. But if you chat about how each principal thinks it's going, that's a better alternative. But it was so fascinating to sit down and have to decipher some of the comments. Obviously principals are trying to sell their school, and this poor journalist is sitting here going, these percentages don't line up. And what question should I ask in follow up to clarify this quote, because it's not working in the wider story? And I'm like, hey, we're all just sitting here going, what on God's green earth did this poor principal write?
I was very lucky that, and of course I'm done with NAPLAN forever now. But for year 9. Because I'm fine with English, did the English one. There were 3 others. The day of, because there was a break in between them, so it was 2 weeks. It was, it was Tuesday, Thursday, whatever. Anyway, the day, so it was Tuesday, then break, then Thursday, and then the next week Tuesday, then Thursday. You get the idea. Tuesday, did the English one, pretty confident, and the results showed it was great, by the way. Talking myself up. But Wednesday, because I also do inter-school debating, shocker, and so I my whole family had COVID at this time, might I add. Legally, still able to be out. I had repeatedly tested negative. Wednesday, I'm doing an inter-school debate after school at night. Go home straight away, test positive. So I'd been doing the debate with COVID, I was already feeling sick. And that meant I missed all the other NAPLANs. And then day of the makeup, was the day I had inter-school footy. So as soon as I came out of ISO, it was straight to inter-school footy. So I somehow missed all but the one NAPLAN that I was good at and knew I was good at. And so that's lucky on me. My brother's entered high school this year, so he's about to find out what high school NAPLAN's like, and year 7 NAPLAN. And fun fact, also, I never did year 7 NAPLAN because that was cancelled in 2020. So I've been really lucky. So in actuality, I've done 2 plus 0.25 years, 2.25 years of NAPLAN instead of the 4. So lucky me there. But I hate NAPLAN, and I will. I hate tests in general.
Yeah.
Awful.
Look, instead
of
of
VCE, group work and multi-choice questions, I can't succeed.
Yeah, no, exactly. In Queensland, we have one more standardised test we do, because instead of VCE, we have the OEP system where you just take basically a NAPLAN-style test, but meant for, I think it's theoretically it gets to year 10 level. I don't know. It was way more complicated than that. But anyway, we did the standardised test, but I had accidentally given, this was pre-COVID, half of our academic enrichment kids a pneumonia. I had a bad cold, and everyone had. I had a bad cold, but it wasn't pneumonia myself. And I'd been hacking up lungs and bits and pieces. It wasn't good. It wasn't bad though. and I'd still been attending school because I was desperate to make sure I wasn't going to fail. And then, I remember there was a flurry of everyone getting medical exemptions and things, and someone had come down with pneumonia, someone else had come bowed out sick. And then I got quoted in the valedictory speech at the end of the year because the gal who got ducks was in a lot of my classes, and she was also the valedictorian, and I had a lot of people accusing me of getting the whole year level sick, and I was like, it was just a cold. All I had was a cold, and the words "just a cold" made it into the valedictory speech, which I think was...
those medical exemptions, we've just started, we've only just had to start them for year 10 here, and I'm also paranoid, because it's like, I'm going to miss it, and then our school's got our own weird rules, like, because I'm in, in Melbourne, it's like, you're late to school because of, like, a tram or something, detention, or you keep those minutes in.
Yeah.
Like, what am I supposed to do if there's a tram crash or traffic? It's out of my control. I can't just get out of the tram. Oh, and if our attendance drops below 90%, then we get a call or something. But they're not very clear whether that includes late or not. I don't know. It's all just stricter stuff. But then again, it's just year 10 for me. Can't wait for year 11 and 12.
Oh, look, I always got very skitty about it all, but I think year 11 and 12, like, year 11's pretty intense, but year 12, at least in Queensland, was kind of a bit of a fuck around, to be honest. We kind of did whatever we want, and as long as we were still passing everything, the teachers didn't really care.
I'm hoping I have that in my year 12.
Yeah.
If I'm even going to make it that far. Yeah, because all I've been hearing is past year 10 and eventually you can start to drop maths and science, and that's all I've been building up to, because I know we get all the concerns, something like, it's university, something blah blah blah, maths and science. I truly do not care. I cannot do maths. I have been very open about this. I will never be able to do maths. Just let me drop the damn subjects.
Yeah.
But unless it's a multi-choice question, then I'm good enough in maths to say it's a quarter of a chance I'm going to get it right.
I was, my weakest subject was English, of all things. I don't know how I now write for a living, but I do, and I never could get above a B or a B plus in English, and I have definitely gotten very close to failing multiple times. But it was, if I could have dropped English, I probably would have in a heartbeat. Luckily, you can't do that in Queensland. You're not allowed to drop English or maths. You've got to do some version of it at some point.
Queensland then.
At least, although I did someone was trying to convince me that they should be forced to do science as well. Although I do think science literacy is probably way more important.
Who is arguing that students should be forced to do more subjects? What monster would argue that?
You're in school at the moment. Coming out of school and having to deal with adults who have never... you've also dealt with adults who've never really studied science. Not understanding the scientific process has been something that has really ground my gears for a very long time.
If Google's advanced enough by the end of it, I can just pass using ChatGPT with a VPN. No, I would, for legal reasons, I would never do that. I'm sure I'll be fine with not using sin cos tan or remembering what BODMAS stands for every minute. Or in science, not remembering exactly how an ion works. I'll live, okay? If I can recall the name of some obscure minor party that ran in one seat in the 1983 election, I can be fine. But in the meantime, with schooling, I'll just continue to respond to people on Twitter who make, as we all see, insane, ridiculous claims about what we are being taught in our curriculum and all that. And we saw politicians. I'm like, I am right here. I'm in a public school in Victoria, which is this big woke state, apparently. Just ask me what we are learning. I will tell you. You are wrong, okay? But that's enough about school.
Yeah.
I got a master's tomorrow. I don't want to talk about school anymore.
No, it's very fascinating, and I think we're gonna have to have a proper discussion about our education system, and having young people who have lived the education system and interacted with adults like you have for a very long time. I think it really opens people's eyes as to how tame and some of where the significant gaps are. We talk about literacy. I don't think we should be talking just about English literacy, but maybe just about science, also about science and maths literacy, but also history literacy and communication literacy. You know, there's a reason why someone's spoken something in a particular way. And I'm very passionate about trying to explain that to people because it is so important for people to understand what's going on.
I have, never been the worst school student. I mean, both my grandparents on my mum's side, so her parents were teachers, so naturally I can't be failing that badly. But it's always going to be interesting, isn't it? And yeah, again, I'll just say it again. I do invite anyone to just ask me as a state school student what we're doing. And by the way, even when I say I'm at a public school, it's like, okay, Peter, are you at one of the independent schools, which is technically not a private school? Public school. Okay, I think, would you agree with me that generally when someone says public school, you assume government state school? I don't know how, I don't know why you'd assume technically independent school, because all the independent schools that are also, like, maybe they're the religious ones, most people consider them private. It's pretty clear. And I know there's technical definition, but come on. State school, government school, public school, whatever you want to call it, that's what I'm at. I'm just glad we don't have 3 schools like the US, elementary, middle, high, middle school. Middle school. Why is kindergarten for them like our prep? I think that's it, isn't it?
No. We are just as bad, by the way. We are not any better with our school system between states. Because as I very quickly realised, obviously you guys have got your extra year before prep. But New South Wales, the way they name their system is kindergarten is actually their prep. And then they've got pre-K. But I don't know. It's so confusing. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I don't know. And the biggest thing for me when I was actually in primary school was when they started calling it, some random day, prep started being called foundation. And I always hated that term, foundation. And I always insisted, maybe it was the rebel inside of me, but I always said prep. I never said foundation. It's foundation. No, foundation.
Yeah.
Call it foundation. It's prep. Prep. Just say prep. Everyone broadly understands what that is. Kinder. Just say kinder, for goodness sake. Make it simpler. Again, though, enough about school.
Enough about school. Looking to the future, obviously, you've got a lot on your plate, but where do you hope Six News will be as you head in the future, and, kind of expand what Six News is about?
Well, it's generally, and people call me crazy, but 24/7 Six News is not that ridiculous or far-fetched. And I say that because of a couple things. Number one, automation. You can automate a 24/7 live stream very easily. Number two, filler programming. You don't have to be like the ABC with a full hour block on a weekday. You really just need 5-minute headlines maybe on the hour or half an hour. Put in some extra programming in the meantime. Cut to a live press conference when you need, etc., etc. I don't know then, but as I said, not non-plausible. Maybe we'll revisit this in a few years. In the short term, though, really just continuing to expand a lot of content on YouTube, especially that kind of, as I mentioned very earlier in the podcast, niche political stuff, political history, and then also mini docos as well. Really loving them. People do seem to engage well with them. Got an upcoming one on the 2-year anniversary of the WA Labor landslide win when the Liberals were down to just 2 lower house seats in WA's Parliament, and we've got a special on that. But in the meantime, we will have to wait and see. I can say the furthest I'll go in terms of where Six News will be, we'll be covering the 2025 federal election. That's as far as I'm going at this stage. To get 2025, 2024 is going to be the crazy year for elections, though. We have, like, Queensland, the Northern Territory,
two sets
the
of
ACT,
elections in Queensland.
yeah, and the US. Let's not forget the US. Victoria, I believe, has local government as well. Of course, Queensland local government's arguably a bit bigger because you don't have an upper house, and like the Brisbane City mayoral race, that's always fun to cover, isn't it?
I did council elections in 2020. So I did both council and state elections back in 2020. It is so much fun. Queensland, because Queensland has the three largest council areas in basically the southern hemisphere. I'm yet to find a bigger council in South America or Africa somewhere. Because we have the three biggest local government areas, there is some massive shenanigans that goes on.
I just still
Moreton Bay is
can't
bit
believe there's a
low-key.
Socialist Alliance councillor up in like Cairns or something like that. It's
it's-
so random. At the same time, though, it's as I said, it's always fun to cover, and I think purely because you guys don't have the upper house, what's happening with council politics is really interesting. And might I add, because we're doing a whole thing where we're checking political affiliations of members on every single council and every single council in Australia. Long, awful process, by the way. The fact Queensland has a register that makes it very clear, much appreciated by myself. But it's always interesting. Let's not forget where Campbell Newman came from in terms of his, and of course he somehow weirdly led the party from outside Parliament, which I will never get. And then he lost his seat 3 years later, which again is still the arguably weirdest thing to happen in Queensland in the last just over a decade ago in terms of politics. Because it seems to be a very Labor state. Very Labor state.
Queensland
After
Yeah.
Sir Joe, by the way.
Yeah.
Before that, less so much.
Look, Joe Bjelke-Petersen he's very much well remembered in Queensland. I don't know, we have a very special cooked kind of politics up in Queensland. I can't believe our upper house decided to nuke itself at one point.
It was a century ago, like last year or something like that. I think they nicknamed it the Suicide Squad. The members who voted to get rid of themselves. No, seriously. I don't get that either. But let's not forget the most interesting, I'll put it nicely, interesting political figures are all coming from Queensland. I'll name two: Palmer, Hanson, and their parties. And nevertheless, and you've got the weird merge, Liberals and Nationals there, which you will wonder how long that will last if they don't win sometime soon. So yeah.
Look, it's never as quiet. I always look at Victoria and I go, Victoria, it's very, very Liberal. And I know you've had your fair share of... very, very Labor. I know you've had your fair share of Liberal governments. But, I think that... I don't know, there's always a possibility... I look at the US and I look at the swing that they've had to the right, and I go...
But then
there's always a possibility that could happen.
Yeah, but then again, look at the
admittedly-
midterms. There was a sudden Republican wave. Might I add, I think Victoria, South Australia is probably the most Labor states, along with Queensland, with a few random exceptions, like Queensland with Newman or SA with not Malinauskas, who was it? Marshall. Tasmania Tasmania is a bit of a swingy one, as is WA, though WA will not switch from Labor at the next election. They will not. I guarantee you the Liberals need they won't. 26
No, the
seats
Labor's
to win. And might add, the Nationals have more seats. New South Wales, again, a bit swingy, of course. I mean, it's been Liberals but for a while, since 2011, but that can partly be blamed simply because Labor's just not good there. ACT has a Greens coalition government, Greens and Labor, for goodness sake. NT is pretty Laboury, though, again, they can swing as well to the CLP and probably will next election, 2024. But
I
it's
haven't looked
interesting.
at the territory state politics. I keep an eye on at least Alice Springs' local politics, because I think
local
that in
politics is
places-
great because you have the most obscure minor parties who somehow hold a seat. In Victoria, we only just have, thanks to countbacks, the Restore Democracy Sack Down Andrews Party founder is now a councillor and a member of the Australian Values Party, which ran as the Angry Victorians Party, also a councillor. You have Victorian Socialist, but also Socialist Alliance. You have these weird groupings. New South Wales is arguably
that
even
group
worse
ticket
with their
that includes like the
groupings.
sex party and things.
The group voting ticket in the upper house is very
that
interesting,
too,
and it's
yeah.
provided some of the arguably best and funniest results in politics. Might add that it was federally too. WA, what was it? Daylight Saving MP elected with 98 votes. Motoring Enthusiast Party elected in 2013 federally. Almost had the Sports Party elected before that weird recount, but yeah, it's all a mess, isn't it? I won't rant about
I
it.
love
though.
I love Australian politics. I think the Westminster system just makes it way more entertaining. You know, even just look over at the UK and Lord Buckethead and, you know, other bits and pieces. It's just one of my favourite parts about living in Australia is that we have such a democratic system that allows for both all sides of crazy to come and put their hand up.
And you could argue that we could move towards things like New Zealand with their proportional representation. We don't have first past the post like in the UK, which is obviously a system that has vote splitting. In US, we don't need to get to that mess with the Electoral College, which I will never understand. But the fact that we have this many parties in our different state and territory and federal parliaments is just incredible. And it's a good thing of our system. I mean, legalised cannabis holds a total of 4 seats across Australia. You're able to have that diversity. Again, you can argue there should be room for more improvements, but we have preferential voting. I mean, I'll just say it before I'm sure we move on or wrap up, but let's not forget, this is a system that when Sir Joe Bjelke-Petersen retired, a member of the Citizens Electoral Council, which is considered a pretty conspiratorial site, also just random. It's been given various descriptions. Somehow beat him, then joined the Nationals, and then was later allegedly involved with the death of a sex worker, and lasted like one term, and then was replaced by One Nation. And I'll never forget when One Nation won 11 seats in Queensland. It had a bigger vote than the Liberals and Nationals. But I'll go on.
One Nation. The fact that that Pauline Hanson's stomping ground is out in Ipswich, I think, really, if anyone who knows of Ipswich and knows the Ipswich area, really explains why Pauline Hanson is out in Ipswich.
Don't forget she almost lost to legalised cannabis, though.
That too. We were watching, crossing our fingers and holding our breaths, because if there was enough Greens votes to transfer to legalised cannabis in any way, shape or form...
Objectively, put aside whether you like Hanson or not, losing to the Weed Party would be objectively funny.
I would have loved to have
seen... If there was a double dissolution, like in 2016, where the quota's lowered, you get more minor parties in, legalised cannabis would have won in Queensland, and they also would have won in Victoria. That being said, One Nation probably would have gotten 4 seats as well. Regardless, though, incredible system, incredible Senate, incredible results, and... how about that expanded crossbench, eh? And who knows? We could see another party pop up on the crossbench when independent Lydia Thorpe forms one, which I think she will.
Yeah. Oh, you think she will? I'm very fascinated.
Well, she's not up
with
for
the Lydia
election until
Thorpe
2028, but she said she's going to lead the Black Sovereignty movement. As soon as you talk about leading a movement, and it's in all caps and like that, it sounds like you could replace the word movement with party very easily.
You could. I don't know. Lydia Thorpe also gives me Jackie Lambie vibes as well.
Jackie Lambie did form a party, and somehow they have a second senator, which is incredible, because those are the type of parties that are usually just formed to get your name above the line, i.e. David Pocock or something like that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Very fascinating. Look, and I think this is a great chance, admittedly, News Corp did announce that they were cutting like a fifth of jobs that they have. But all I see at the moment is that the journalism industry is expanding because there is more appetite for more viewpoints and more diversity and more interesting opinions and interesting analyses and more interviews with more candidates. We had so many candidates on the ballot for the federal election that it was going to be impossible. You would have to have the ad for 24 hours, 7 days a week over the 6 weeks just to cover every single, candidate.
Well, we almost did with our parties, and at least one from every party, and how about that, hey? That ballot paper size was ridiculous, because, by the way, you're fully allowed, by the way. There's no law against it. You can walk in with your parents and you can film your own ballot paper in the box privately. An empty one, might I add. I definitely did not film it after my dad or mum filled it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, the size of that was a joke. It was ridiculous. It was funny.
I voted on Friday night before the election, and I voted early because I was going to be out all day. I was chasing Elizabeth Watson Brown around Brisbane, but I by the time I got to the front of the line, because I got there right as the deadline hit, that I really need to go to the toilet. So, and this is my greatest shame, I voted above the line. I
made both my parents do that. Except
everyone
arguably,
and I just wanted
it's more important here because below the line your preferences can't be controlled. Above the line they can in our Victorian upper house. At least for the Senate with you knew where your preferences were going.
Yeah.
With my parents, I was like, okay, you need to number I don't know if it was 5 below the line or something 5 below the line. But I insisted on making my parents number them all, and it got up to 50 or 60 or something like that. And I just did it, and I'm like, this is sending a message about below the line voting and preferences. But yeah.
Yeah.
It's convenient, but in Victoria,
option,
when you actually have someone else controlling it, let's say
this is the thing,
1 to 6 above the line, or it'd probably be 1 to 5 in Victoria's case if we switched to a Senate style system, which I don't think we'd do. We'd go more like a New South Wales, SA, WA type thing. But yeah, 1 to 6 above, 1 to 12 is very simple to remember.
Although
Victoria much more complicated, and I know this podcast is going to go for 2 hours if I rant more, so I'll wrap it up. But it can be complicated.
Look, I love the rants. This is the podcast for rants. It's very exciting, and working in journalism, regardless of what kind of journalism you work in, it's been a very exciting time over the last 5 or 6 years. And it's going to get more and more exciting with the Olympics and the Commonwealth Games coming here. Commonwealth Games just doing a second
unfortunately,
lap for
any network
point.
that is not like Seven wanting to cover any kind of Olympic Games, you're screwed with those footage requirements. You are absolutely screwed. The IOC rules are so strict.
Yeah.
And might add, it's even harder for us because on YouTube, it's just an auto strike. We don't even have the option. We are under warning now, so any strike is just an immediate 1-week ban. We've had it happen twice. Both times we've overturned it. But it's a mess, isn't it? I am looking forward to it though, and just purely because you like the Aussie stuff, and I think Tokyo 2021, just watching it at home on lockdown and seeing the Aussies doing something was great. And shame it wasn't Tokyo 2020.
Yeah,
the perfect logo for it and everything. It was great. Would have been great.
I love how the logos were still everywhere as well.
It was still called Tokyo 2020, I believe, officially
much
too.
into their hockey.
But well.
Yeah. I suppose it's some antiquated IOC rule, whatever. But yeah. We're kind of running out of time at the moment. Thank you so much, Leo, for coming on the podcast. It's been so fun chatting with you. It's really lovely to speak to someone who has the, quote, same youthful energy as I do.
I'm losing the youthful energy every single day. But, yeah.
The bitterness fades in very quickly, unfortunately.
It does.
Where can people find you on the internet?
I'm on Twitter for all the rants, Leo_Puglisi6, that's Puglisi. But in terms of 6 News stuff, whole team, and it's a numeral, by the way, not the word every time, 6newsau.com, no.au, youtube.com/@6newsau, at 6newsau on any social media as well. Subscribe to us, and we're also on Patreon if you'd like to give us a bit of extra support, because we don't have any advertisers. We have a tiny bit of YouTube ad money, but it's like nothing, because any video on a somewhat serious topics to monetize anyway. That's patreon.com/6newsau, just $4 a month. Patreon.com/6newsau. But again, every single link can be found in the one place, which is 6newsau.com. But yeah, anytime, really great chatting, and it's good to know that someone else can actually talk about weird political stuff and knows something as well, and isn't just silently nodding along like, what is this 15-year-old ranting about? But then again, I can go much deeper.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, you and I probably could sit for hours and speak about all the weird stuff that goes on, especially you as a Victorian and myself as a Queenslander. Like, just the fact... I'm so curious about states having states having upper houses. I think it's so fascinating because I've grown up without an
also
upper
it seems
house,
like whoever's in
but yeah.
opposition calls for the upper house and then changes their mind as soon as they're in government, and then the cycle continues, which is what a thing that is, isn't it? I remember very, very quickly. Yeah,
it
very
makes
quickly.
question time such a spectacle.
I remember speaking to getting an interview with Aidan McClendon. Eventually ran in Freedom here. Used to be an MP up there. Eventually joined Katter. He's been in like 8 parties, and he was calling it. And then actually that's when he dropped that he was forming this new Freedom Party. And so I do all these interviews. But yeah, upper house so interesting there because unlike like ACT or Tasmania does have an upper house, so it's really weird. Or even the NT. You barely really see these days minority governments in Queensland, even though you only have one chance. You get the super majority most of the time. And that's why when it happens, when you get the double majority, WA, with the insane majority, that's why it becomes noteworthy. But I'm starting to rant during the wrap-up part of this, so I'll stop now. And again, 6 News AU.
No. Has there been anything that... Yeah, look, has there been anything that you've been reading, watching, or interacting with that you wanted to
I'd just
plug?
say go watch American Psycho. Great movie. Anyone who follows me on Twitter knows I tweet about it a lot. American Psycho, Patrick Bateman, go watch it. He's literally me. That's about it. I everything else I watch is 6 News. There's the other plug. I can keep the plugs going all night.
Yeah.
Every single appearance I've made on the ABC's drum show,
I
have made a plug. Every single time without fail.
Of all things, I was about to plug the drum because I've finally had a terrestrial TV hooked up. It's the first time in many years I've sat with a terrestrial TV, and I really enjoy watching the drum.
I like
they
the
get
drum
into some
too.
really
That's why I
spicy
go on it.
debates, and it doesn't have the same stigma as Q as
it's good.
Q&A.
It's at a nice time too, 6 p.m. instead of 9:35 on a Q&A on a Monday. What was it, Thursday? Let's be honest, a lot of people forget Q&A's on these days. As soon as they move to Thursday, it's dead. And they've moved it back, but it's like too late. That being said, I know Q&A have approached me and they maybe will get me on later this year. So I take back anything negative about Q&A. And I think 9:35 is a great time for me to go to the ABC studio. I'm going to stop talking before I blow media opportunities with everyone else.
Yeah. Look, I don't know. The ABC's got a lot of work. I think they've got to do internally on the way they operate. As with the media landscape changes, so does our national broadcaster have to change, and if that means reviewing the time of Q&A and other big political things, and maybe the validity of programs such as Insiders and the Drum, and reevaluating what value that they serve. I think it's really important. You can find me on at sam.the.journalist on Instagram and on TikTok. You can find me at samobjournalist on Twitter. I do not tweet as much as Leo does. I mostly make observations of the crazy things that go on, or am retweeting things from the podcast where absolutely unhinged quotes get taken out of context with much. Or actually, of all things, this week one of the other podcasts on the Deus Ex Media Network was talking about how I keep saying it's lovely chatting to you, which is something that I didn't realize I said all the time. Thank you so much, Leah, for coming on the podcast, and I'm looking forward to seeing
anytime. Thank you very much.
Content and Capable was recorded, edited, and produced by Samuel O'Brien. You can follow the podcast at Content, the letter N, Capable on Instagram and Twitter, and you can find it on Facebook. You can also send an email through to contentandcapablepod@gmail.com with any of your thoughts, queries, or concerns. The best way to support the podcast is to leave a review on your preferred podcatcher so more people can hear the podcast. The art was done by Opia, and the music was written, edited, and produced by Jason Hilton. Content and Capable is proud to be a part of the Deus Ex Media Network, where you can find a podcast for any of your nerdy interests.
Hey folks, Alex and I have been traveling, so there's no new episode today, but don't worry. There'll be one on Friday, I promise. I will make that happen for you. Our schedule's been pretty crazy, and we haven't really had time to sit down to record The Great Divide, but I prepared this little trailer for you guys, and I hope you all like it. So enjoy. Coffee, tea, honor, cabbage. Long ago, the four elements lived in harmony. Then, shit went totally cray when the Avatar attacked. Only the Cabbage Man, merchant of fine cruciferous vegetables, could stand against his trolling. But when the world needed some dank veg, he vanished. 10 years have passed, and my partner and I have started a new podcast.
My cabbages! An Avatar podcast.
A weekly show about Avatar: The Last Airbender. Whether it's Sokka's new line of cologne,
Hey, look at you, sitting there on a seal. Well, now look back at me. I'm on a even bigger seal. Now look away.
D&D related antics,
You have to make an acrobatics check for that, and Aang just like unzips his pants and whips out his d20s. He's just like, I got this.
or randomly breaking into song.
Go bending waterfall.
We'll stumble our way through the greatest show ever made, one episode at a time.
You can reach us at CabbageCast, which is our Twitter, or
Subscribe wherever you catch pod.
Rotten cabbages? What kind of slum do you think this is?
Thank you for listening to Content and Capable. Don't forget to rate and review, and we'll see you next week for another episode.
Deus Ex Media.